58 feet. Okay. Example 6. A jet flew from New York to LA, a distance of 4,200 kilometers. The speed for the return trip was 100 kilometers faster than the outbound speed. If the total trip took 13 hours, what was the jet speed from New York to LA? First of all, we need to know the formula for speed. So if you remember from science class, speed is equal to distance divided by time. Okay. All right, so we want to know the speed from New York to LA, so let's let that be our variable. So how about S for speed, equal the speed from New York to LA. Okay, so we know a few things. We know that the distance, either direction, is 4,200, and we know the speed, well, some information about the speed. Okay, so we know two things. We're making this trip from New York to LA, and then this trip happens from LA to New York. Okay. So we know, regardless, that our distance is going to be 4,200 kilometers both directions. We also know that we just said that the speed would be S for New York to LA. And we know that the speed is going to be from LA to New York 100 kilometers faster. So we're going to add 100 kilometers to whatever that speed was. I do know something about the time. I know that if I took the time from New York to LA plus the time from LA to New York, in total that would be 13 hours. So if I did the time from New York to LA plus the time from LA to New York, that should equal my total time, which was 13 hours. So now I just need really a formula for this. Well, I know the distance, I know the speed, sort of, I have an expression at least. Now I want to know what's the time. I can rearrange this formula instead of saying S equals to say T equals. So what I can do is really think of this as cross multiplying. That's going to give me D is equal to ST, and then I'll divide by S on both sides. So I'll get that time is equal to distance divided by speed. Okay, so the time from New York to LA should be its distance divided by speed. That's 4,200 divided by S, plus the time from LA to New York, again, distance divided by speed. And we said that should equal 13 hours. Okay, now what we want to do is to, solve. So we can multiply by the common denominator to make sure we have no fractions. The common denominator will be S times S plus 100. Oops, S, where's the undo? Times S plus 100. Okay, and we're going to clean up. So when I distribute to this first fraction, the S cancels. I get 4,200 times S plus 100. When I distribute to the second, the S plus 100 cancels, so I just get 4,200 S. And that'll equal 13 S, I'm going to distribute that. So squared plus 1,300 S. All right, so now we want to still distribute this portion, and then we're going to do some combining. So we have 4,200 S plus 420,000 plus 4,200 S is equal to 13 S squared plus 1,300 S. All right, combine like terms. So we have 420,000 plus 8,400 S is equal to 13 S squared plus 1,300 S. And what we want to do is make this say equals 0. So I'm going to move everything to the left. That way the squared term stays positive. So I'm going to have 0 is equal to 13S squared. I'm going to subtract that 8,400S over. When I do that, that's going to give me a minus 7,100. And then I will subtract, 7,100S. And then I'm going to subtract that 420,000. Okay. Honestly, quadratic formula is going to be the best bet here. That way we don't have to worry. These numbers are way too crazy to try to factor in. I don't even know that it will. So we're going to get, instead of x, we'll get s equals opposite of b, so that'll be positive 7,100, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times 13 times negative 420,000 all over 2a, so 2 times 13. All right, when we clean that up, definitely going to want a calculator for this. We're going to get s is equal to 7,100 plus or minus, when we take the square root, we'll get 8,500 over 26. And when I work this out, I'll get two answers. The positive one will be 600, and the negative one will be negative, negative 53.8. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, negative speed doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense here, so we're going to ignore that number. 600 is our speed from New York to LA. So our speed from New York to LA was 600 kilometers per hour. And last but not least, an object is thrown or fired straight up into the air at an initial speed, of v sub 0, like it's a subscript, so we say sub 0 feet squared. And this will reach a height of h feet after t seconds, where h and t are going to be related by the formula negative 16t squared plus v sub 0 t. Suppose a bullet is shot straight upward with an initial speed of 800 feet per second. So we're really going to just replace v sub 0 with that 800. So the formula we're looking at is h minus 16t squared plus 800t. So the first question says, when does that fall back to the ground? When does it hit ground level? So what we're going to do is really ask, when is it going to have a height of 0? So when do we get h equals 0? Well, let's plug 0 in and find out. So 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 800t. I think factoring will be the easiest way here. We can take out a GCF of negative 16t. That's going to give us t minus 50 in parentheses. And now we'll use the zero product property. So we get negative 16t equals 0 or t equals 0. But times 0 is when we started, so that's not going to be the answer here. T minus 50 equals 0, so t equals 50. So after 50 seconds, this will fall back down to the ground. Okay. The next one, we want to know when it reaches a height of 6,400. So let's just say h equals 6,400, plug it in, and solve for t. So 6,400 is equal to negative 16t squared plus 800t. You have some options here, but we do want to make sure this says equals 0, and it's always convenient when our a is a positive number. So let's add the 16t over and subtract the 800t. So that's going to give us 16t squared minus 800t plus 6,400 equals 0. We can divide. We're going to divide out here by a GCF of 16. As long as we do it to both sides of the equation, that's perfectly fine. So we get t squared minus 50t plus 400 equals 0. Now, you could use the quadratic formula. You could use any method, but this does happen to be factorable. So that's going to give us t minus 10 times t minus 40 equals 0. And then when I go to solve that, t minus 10 is 0, which means t is 10. And t minus 40 equals 0, which means t equals 40. So that means we are going to hit really that height at two different times. So we will be at 10 seconds would be on the way up. And again at 40 seconds on the way down. This is really making like an upside down parabola, right? It's going to go up and then it's going to come down. So it's going to hit that height of 6,400 two different times when we are at 10 seconds and when we are at 40 seconds. Okay. All right, when does it reach 2 miles? Well, we're talking about feet in this problem, so we need to make sure we're converting to feet. We know that 1 mile is 5,280 feet, So 2 miles should be double that. So 2 miles is 10,560 feet. So that's what we want h. When is h going to be 10,560 feet? Oops, feet. Okay, so let's plug it in. So 10,560 is equal to negative 16t squared plus 800t. And let's make this say equals 0. So 16t squared minus 800t plus 10,560 is equal to 0. And then what we want to do from there probably is the quadratic formula. Because of how messy this is, we might still be able to, maybe we can divide by 16. That might work. Let's see. Yeah, that'll work. So we'll get t squared minus 50t plus 660 is equal to 0. And this is so messy. Let's try the quadratic formula. So we have that t should be equal to negative b, so positive 50, plus or minus the square root of negative 50 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And when I work that out, that's 50 plus or minus the square root of, negative 140 over 2. Negative 140. When we get a negative, we get no real solutions. What does that mean? We never reach it. We're going to never reach that height of 2 miles. Okay. And then how high is the highest point this bullet reaches? Now, there's a few ways we could go about this, but to be perfectly honest, let's think back to Algebra 1. It's going to make our lives so much easier. Here's my parabola, right? The highest point is called the maximum. Really, it's the y value that I'm trying to figure out. I know it's going to have a matching x value, and the maximum is always the vertex. Our vertex we can find by first finding our axis of symmetry and then calculating it. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. When I plug in negative b over 2a from my original equation, remember I had 16t squared plus 800t equal to h. So that is negative 800 over 2 times negative 16. And when I calculate that, that's going to give me 25 for the x value. So at 25 seconds, we're going to reach our max height, but we want to know what it is, so we can just plug it in. So h is going to equal negative 16 times 25 squared plus 800 times 25. And let the calculator do our work for us. That's going to be 10,000, which means the highest point is 10,000.